Have you ever felt that time is slipping through your fingers? That no matter how fast you run, how much you achieve, or how hard you try to organize your life, there is never enough time? You wake up, you rush through your day, you sleep, and you repeat. Years turn into decades in the blink of an eye. You might call this modern life. You might call it being busy, but the ancient masters called it something else entirely. They called it a prison. Consider this. What if the sensation of time passing is not a fundamental law of the universe, but a programmed illusion? What if yesterday and tomorrow are not real places, but artificial constructs designed to keep your consciousness locked in a perpetual state of anxiety and limitation? We are taught that time is a straight line, an arrow that flies from birth to death, never to return. But this linear understanding is exactly what keeps you trapped in the third dimension. The Emerald Tablets of Thoth, the Atlantean, texts that date back thousands of years, contain a terrifying secret about the nature of our reality. Thoth does not speak of time as a friend or a resource. He describes it as a barrier, a deliberate frequency fence constructed to separate the awakening soul from the truth of its own immortality. And he is not alone. In the 20th century, the mystic scientist Itzhak Bentov used quantum mechanics to prove mathematically that your consciousness is capable of escaping this timeline entirely. To understand how to escape the trap, we must first understand how the trap is built. Look at a clock. Watch the second hand tick, tick, tick. It seems absolute, doesn't it? It seems undeniable. We are conditioned to believe that time is external to us, a flowing river that carries us along whether we like it or not. We believe that the past is gone, solidified and unchangeable, and that the future is yet to exist, a blank void waiting to be filled. This is the linear illusion. But modern neuroscience and ancient metaphysics agree on one startling fact. The brain does not perceive time, it creates it. Your physical brain is a biological reduction valve. Its job is to filter the infinite data of the universe down to a manageable trickle. If you were to experience everything that is happening in the cosmos simultaneously, your biological system would be incinerated by the sheer overload of information. So the brain slices reality into thin, manageable frames. It presents you with one frame after another, creating the illusion of motion, much like a film projector creates the illusion of a moving picture from still images. Now imagine this. If you take a film reel and lay it out flat on the floor, every frame of the movie exists at the same time. The beginning, the climax, and the ending are all there, present on the floor together. The characters in the movie do not know this. They only experience the scene they are currently in. But you, the observer standing above the film, can see the entire timeline at once. This is the difference between third-dimensional perception and fifth-dimensional reality. We are the characters in the movie, convinced that the past is gone and the future is unknown, simply because our projector, our brain, is only lighting up one frame at a time. The tragedy of the human condition is that we have become addicted to the timeline. We spend almost all of our mental energy living in the psychological time. We replay past traumas, regressing into memories that no longer exist, or we project fear into a future that hasn't happened yet. This splits your energy. It fragments your soul. When you are lost in the past or anxious about the future, you are vacating the only place where you actually possess power, the present moment. The linear illusion is a mechanism that siphons your life force away from the now, leaving you powerless to change your reality.
Thoth the Atlantean was not just a priest or a king, he was a master of dimensions. In the Emerald Tablets, specifically in the tablets dealing with the halls of Amenti, he gives a warning that has baffled scholars for centuries. He speaks of a great barrier that prevents the souls of men from leaving the cycle of reincarnation. He writes, "Time is the secret of the barrier. Time is the secret of the freedom." This seems like a paradox. How can time be both the barrier and the freedom? Thoth explains that there are entities, guardians, or perhaps wardens, that exist solely to maintain this structure. He refers to the Hound of the barrier, a metaphor for the forces that police the boundaries of our reality. These forces are not necessarily evil in the traditional sense. They are cosmic immune systems designed to keep unrefined consciousness from entering higher dimensions where they could cause chaos. The Hound waits at the threshold of time. It feeds on fear, and specifically the fear of non-existence. When a human consciousness attempts to expand beyond the linear timeline during deep meditation, trauma, or death, it encounters this barrier. If the soul is still attached to the illusion of becoming, the need to do more, to have more time, to finish the story, it is bounced back into the linear track. It is recycled. Thoth warns that as long as you believe you are a product of time, a being that is born, ages, and dies, you are subject to the laws of entropy and decay. You are food for the Hound. But here is the forbidden key Thoth offers. The barrier is not solid. It is a frequency. The Hound can only track you if you emit the scent of time. And what is the scent of time? It is desire. It is the constant itching feeling that this moment is not enough, that you need to get to the next moment to be happy, fulfilled, or safe. This vibration of lacking ties you to the horizontal axis of time. Thoth teaches that to pass the Hound, you must enter a state of timelessness while still in the body. You must cease to become and simply be. Consider the profound implication of this. The prison of time is not locked from the outside. It is locked from the inside by your own addiction to the story of your life. The moment you withdraw your belief in the narrative of past and future, the walls of the prison become transparent. You become invisible to the guardians of the Matrix because you are no longer playing by their rules. This is not just poetic mysticism. As we are about to see, it is the exact same conclusion reached by the rogue physicist Itzhak Bentov in his study of consciousness mechanics. To bridge the gap between ancient prophecy and modern reality, we must look at the mechanics of perception. Itzhak Bentov, in his groundbreaking work Stalking the Wild Pendulum, proposed that time is not a fixed constant, but a subjective experience dictated by the processing speed of consciousness. Let's bring this down to earth with a simple biological example: the fly and the elephant. Imagine you try to swat a fly. To you, your hand moves at lightning speed, but the fly effortlessly dodges it. Why? Because the fly's nervous system processes visual information roughly 7 times faster than yours. To the fly, your fast hand is moving in slow motion. It is living in a different time stream. Conversely, consider an elephant. Its heart beats slower. Its metabolism is slower. If an elephant observes a human running, we might appear like frantic buzzing insects. The point is this: time is relative to the observer's frequency. Bentov took this principle into the quantum realm. He theorized that our reality acts like a strobe light. You are not solid and continuous. You are blinking on and off. You exist.
and then you disappear into the void, and then you reappear. This happens roughly 14 times a second, too fast for your physical eyes to register. But where do you go when you blink off? Bentov suggests that in those micro-intervals of non-existence, your consciousness expands into the infinite. You touch the source. But because we are addicted to the on phase, the material world, we ignore the off phase, the spiritual reality. This leads us to the concept of vertical time. Most of us live in horizontal time, the timeline of past, present, and future, on the third dimensional plane. We move from point A to point B. But Bentov and the ancient masters teach that at any given moment there is a vertical axis intersecting the line. This is the still point. By increasing the vibration of your consciousness, essentially processing more reality per second, you stop moving along the line and start moving up the vertical axis. In this state of high-frequency consciousness, subjective time slows down until it stops completely. You are no longer waiting for the next moment, you are diving infinitely deep into this moment. This is the physics behind the miracles of monks who can sit in meditation for days without moving, or athletes who enter the zone where the ball seems to float in the air. They have not stopped the clock on the wall. They have shifted their internal frequency to match the vertical time, escaping the trap of the linear seconds.
So, what happens when you fully ascend this vertical axis? You enter what esoteric traditions call the fifth dimension. The fourth dimension is often described as time itself, the corridor we walk through. The fifth dimension is the vantage point above the corridor. From the fifth dimension, time is spatial. It is laid out like a map. Just as you can look at a map and see New York and London simultaneously without having to travel between them, a fifth-dimensional consciousness sees your birth, your childhood, your old age, and your death as one single, simultaneous object. This is the eternal now Thoth speaks of. It is crucial to understand the difference between infinity and eternity. They are not the same. Infinity is an endless amount of time, forever and ever. That is a trap of the mind. Eternity is no time at all. It is the total collapse of the sequence. In the fifth dimension, you do not wait for anything. There is no becoming, only being. All possibilities, all timelines, and all outcomes exist right here, suspended in a state of perfect potential. The illusion that Thoth warns us about is the belief that we are trapped inside the map, crawling along the road inches at a time. The awakening is the realization that you are, and always have been, the one holding the map. When you access this state, you realize that your past is not gone. It is simply a frequency you are no longer tuning into. And your future is not unwritten. It is a frequency you have not yet selected. Now imagine this. If all time is simultaneous, then karma is not a punishment that waits for you in the next life. It is an immediate energetic feedback loop. You are punishing or rewarding yourself in real time across all versions of your existence. The time-space barrier prevents you from seeing this connection. It keeps you ignorant of your own power, making you believe that the cause, your action, and the effect, the consequence, are separated by years, when in reality they occupy the same space. If you're beginning to feel a shift in your perception, if these words are resonating with a memory buried deep in your DNA, then you are ready to go further. We are building a community of seekers dedicated to decoding these forbidden mechanics. By joining our channel, you support the excavation of this lost knowledge and ensure it reaches those who need to wake up. Click the Join or Patreon link in the description to access the inner circle. Now let's return to the most critical part. How do you actually break the loop?
how do we apply this? How do we stop the pendulum? Itzhak Bentov gives us a clue with his concept of the still point. In any oscillation, whether it is a pendulum swinging or a heart beating, there is a microscopic moment of total rest at the peak of the swing before it changes direction. In that fraction of a second, velocity is zero, time is zero. That silence is the doorway to the fifth dimension. You can access this still point through a simple but profound shift in attention. The ancient Hermetic schools taught a technique of watching the gap. Your thoughts are like a stream of traffic. Usually, you are lost in the cars, the worries, the plans, the memories. But if you observe closely, there is a tiny gap between the end of one thought and the beginning of the next. A brief silence, a flash of pure space. Your task is to find that gap and extend it. Do not fight your thoughts, simply watch them pass and wait for the silence that follows. When you anchor your attention in that silence, you are stepping out of horizontal time, the stream of thought, and into vertical time, the awareness of the stream. You are no longer the thinker, you are the observer. Thoth advises that the key to passing the Hound of the barrier is the removal of fear, specifically the fear of death. Remember, death is only a tragedy if you believe you are running out of time. But if you realize that you are the generator of time, then death is simply the moment you choose to stop projecting the movie. To practice dying while you are alive, you must practice total surrender to the now. Try this. For the next hour, act as if your past has been erased and your future is canceled. You have no history to defend and no destination to reach. You only have this breath, this sensation, this room. When you strip away the narrative of who you were and who you want to be, what remains? The pure, indestructible I am. That is your fifth dimensional self. That is the part of you the Hound cannot touch because it has no scent of fear. We have been taught that time is a fire in which we burn. But the secret of the ages, whispered from the halls of Atlantis to the quantum labs of the 20th century, is that we are the fire. Time is just the wood we consume to keep the experience burning. You are not a victim of the clock. You are an immortal consciousness experiencing a temporary limitation for the sake of learning. The illusion of time is the ultimate school. It teaches us patience, cause and effect, and the value of the moment. But there comes a time in the evolution of every soul when the school bell rings and you must walk out of the classroom. You are being called to graduate from the linear timeline, to stop running from the past, to stop chasing the future, to stand firm in the vertical power of the now. The fifth dimension is not a place you go to. It is a frequency you inhabit. And you can choose that frequency right now. The barrier is open. The guardians are waiting, but they will only let you pass when you realize you never actually needed their permission. If this message has unlocked something within you, do not let the feeling fade. The algorithm will try to pull you back into the noise. Fight it. Watch this next video on the screen to dive deeper into Itzhak Bentov's specific techniques for mastering the wild pendulum of your mind. The journey has just begun. I'll see you there.